on exertion or rest. There is no history of nocturnal angina. There is no history of breathlessness. There is no history of cough. There is no history of orthopnea (PND). There is no history of cyanosis. There is no history of edema of feet, facial puffiness, abdominal distension or pain in the right upper abdomen or nausea or vomiting. There is no history of hoarseness of voice or dysphagia.
So Viraj, sorry to disturb you. Your
Yes, sir.
first chief complaint was palpitations.
Yes, sir. There is only one chief complaint.
Okay. So how did you know that the palpitations were continuous or regular or irregularly irregular?
The regular or regularity, I asked the patient to compare it with the clock voice and to show me by tapping.
Okay. So following palpitations, what were the sequence of that? After palpitations, what happened?
There were only palpitations and they got relieved after taking rest.
Okay. Can you please repeat, because my audio was off? I was not able to hear you for some time. So can you repeat from the palpitation onwards?
Okay. So the patient was apparently all right 1 year back, since I can hear an echo of my voice.
But anyway, you can hear me, na?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
The patient was apparently all right 1 year back.
You can continue, Viraj.
Some of them are telling that the voice is breaking. I don't know how to fix it.
Viraj, your phone.
Hello?
Viraj, I can hear you.
Okay. So the patient was apparently... Try switch on and off the microphone. Okay. The patient was apparently all right 1 year back, since when he is having intermittent palpitations, which are only on exertional activities like climbing flight of stairs, about 3 flights of stairs. They are gradual in onset and offset, regular in rhythm, with the rate proportionate to that of the severity of the activity, and they relieve gradually on taking rest for some time. There is no history of sudden onset or offset. There is no history of palpitations at rest. Try without... Okay.
Viraj, continue. I can hear you.
Okay. So I am trying without earphone. Sir, but the echo is still happening. This... Hello.
Continue.
Yes. So they relieve gradually on taking rest for some time. There is no history of sudden onset or offset. There is no history of palpitation at rest. There is no history of syncope. There is no history of increased micturition following palpitation.
Okay, then?
This was the history of palpitation, sir.
Okay. Continue.
There is no history of chest pain on exertion or even at rest. There is no history of nocturnal angina. There is no history of breathlessness. There is no history of cough. There is no history of cyanosis. There is no history of orthopnea, paroxysmal nocturnal dyspnea. There is no history of edema of feet, facial puffiness, abdominal distension or pain in the right upper quadrant of the abdomen or nausea or vomiting. There is no history of hoarseness of voice or dysphagia. There is no history of long-standing fever with petechial hemorrhages or painful fingertips. There is no history of fleeting joint pain with fever and swelling in the childhood. There is no history of cyanotic spells or squatting episodes in the childhood. There is no history of exposure to venereal diseases. There is no history of fatigue, tiredness, or blood in the stools. There is no history of decreased weight gain in spite of increased food intake, proximal muscle weakness, sweaty skin. There is no history of abdominal pain, sweating, dizziness on posture change, or panic attacks.
Viraj,
Yes, sir, it was my
can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello, Viraj, can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hello?
Yes, sir, I can hear.
The thing is, your negative history is too long. You should not have such a long negative history. So can you make your negative history shorter so that you can have we can approach the diagnosis properly?
Sir, I took it in terms of to rule out the etiology and complications, sir.
Okay, but can you make it slightly
And-
shorter?
Okay, there is no history of chest pain on exertion or at rest. There is no history of breathlessness. There is no history of cyanosis. There is no history of cough. There is no history of orthopnea, PND. There is no history suggestive of infective endocarditis or rheumatic heart disease. There is no history of any cyanotic spells during the childhood. There is no history of hoarseness of voice or dysphagia. Yes, and there is no history of fatigue, tiredness, or blood in the stools. There is no history suggestive of hyperthyroidism, and there is no history of panic attacks.
Okay. So this was your negative history. Okay, you can continue.
There is no history of diabetes mellitus, tuberculosis, asthma, epilepsy, hypertension, dyslipidemia. There is no history of any medication intake. Family history is significant. His father died of aortic dissection, and he's a known case of Marfan syndrome. He has two sisters, one of whom has vertebral anomalies, and another one has ectopia lent. Another sister has ectopia lentis.
Okay.
There is normal sleep, bowel, bladder habits, mixed diet, no alcohol intake, tobacco chewing or smoking. There is no history of allergies, and the patient belongs to lower upper socioeconomic status as per modified Kuppuswamy classification.
Okay.
Yes.
So what would be your provisional diagnosis?
30 years old male with a family history of Marfan syndrome, presenting with palpitation since 1 year, without chest pain, breathlessness, PND, orthopnea, cyanosis, or nocturnal angina, is likely to have inherited left-sided volume overload due to mitral valve pathology, most likely to be mitral valve prolapse due to myxomatous disease without complications. I would also like to consider mitral regurgitation.
You said,
and
Viraj, you said myxomatous degeneration. What is the cause of myxomatous degeneration?
Less than 60 years, it is because of it can be because of Barlow's disease. In this case, I think it is because of Marfan syndrome.
No, but actually, what happens in myxomatous degeneration?
Either one of the leaflet or any of either one of the components of the leaflet or any of the leaflets may get affected. There is abnormal deposition of collagen which makes it floppy.
Collagen, or it is chondroitin sulfate?
It's both the things.
Yeah. It is a glycosaminoglycans, okay, that gets deposited and that damages the leaflet. So which leaflet is affected, anterior or posterior?
In mitral valve prolapse, more commonly the posterior leaflet is affected, and to be more specific, it is according to Carpentier classification, more commonly the P2 segment is more affected.
Okay. So any other differential you have?
Mitral regurgitation and sinus tachycardia, sir.
Okay.
Sir, I am not considering aortic. It can even be aortic regurgitation, sir, but I am not considering it because of negative history of nocturnal angina.
Okay. But the other, what could be the cause of mitral regurgitation if you feel?
The Marfan syndrome, Barlow's disease, sir, in this case, because he's less than 60 years
Marfan syndrome, MVP. MVP.
Yes,
Marfan
sir.
syndrome will cause MVP. But your second, you said it is mitral regurgitation. What could be the likely cause in India?
Rheumatic heart disease, sir.
Rheumatic heart disease. Okay, okay. So any other? So your first would be MVP. Second is your MR
Yes, sir.
because of rheumatic heart disease. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, okay. So you
And
had
third,
only one
sinus
fifth complaint.
tachycardia.
Pardon?
Sinus tachycardia is my third differential.
Okay. Why she should have sinus tachycardia persistently?
Sir, I don't know.
No, what is the causes of persistent sinus tachycardia? Simple question.
It can be because of some channelopathy.
Because of channelopathy. Any other simple causes of sinus tachycardia?
Prolonged exertion can itself cause sinus tachycardia. Obesity can be associated, as Tanmay is.
No, but he is having since 1 month, you said, no, sinus tachycardia.
No, sir. The complaint is only of palpitation since 1 year.
Oh, palpitation since 1 year means he is having some cardiac pathology since 1 year. So what could be the cause of sinus if he has on ECG sinus tachycardia or examination the pulse is having tachycardia? What would be the cause of persistent tachycardia? Any endocrine cause? Any endocrine cause?
Pheochromocytoma, hyperthyroidism,
Hyperthyroidism, pheochromocytoma. Okay. Was he taking any drugs for asthma or any other?
No, sir. No other comorbidities or any history of drug medication, sir.
Did he have any history of bleeding or loss of blood?
No such history, sir.
So there is no history suggestive of any anemia also.
Yes, sir. I ruled that also out in the negative history.
Okay. Continue. So you are coming to your general examination now.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
The patient is examined in a well-lit room after taking.
You are not getting echo now, na? Are you getting echo now? No.
No. I am not getting same.
Okay. Continue.
Yes, sir. The patient is examined in a well-lit room after taking due consent in presence of a male chaperone. He is conscious, alert, cooperative, well-oriented in time, place, and person. He has an average build and is moderately nourished. He is being examined in sitting position. He is lying comfortably in the decubitus of his choice. He is afebrile. Pulse is 110 per minute, 110 beats per minute. Regular rhythm, normal volume, normal character. No radial or radiofemoral delay. Peripheral pulses are present. There is no apex pulse deficit that is being found. His blood pressure is 130 by 80 millimeters. Yes, sir.
Tell me some few different characters of the pulse. Can you enumerate some characters of the pulse?
Pulsus bisvarians, pulsus paradoxus, pulsus alternans, pulsus bigemini. Yes, sir.
Any other? Diachrotic pulse?
Yeah, water hammer
pulse. Okay. What do you mean by force, volume, and tension of the pulse?
Force is the amount of pressure that is required to obliterate that the pulse. It gives an account of the systolic component, whereas tension gives an account of the diastolic component.
So how come you evaluate the force of the pulse on when you feel the pulse? How you know the force of the pulse? What is which finger you use to know the force of the pulse?
The index finger, sir.
Pardon?
Index fingers.
What?
The index finger is used to obliterate
the pulse. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Then volume.
Volume is felt palpated by the middle finger.
Okay. And tension?
Tension also by middle finger.
Okay, but what do you mean by tension? When you say I want to know the tension of the pulse, what do you mean by that? It is a condition of the pulse between the two systole, between the two peaks. It is the diastolic pressure. So by knowing the tension, you know the diastolic pressure of the pulse.
Okay, sir.
Okay.
Diastolic.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So should I continue?
Continue.
Blood pressure is 130 by 80 millimeter mercury, which is measured in the right arm in supine position. So the pulse pressure is 50 millimeter mercury. The lower limb pressure.
I'll just 1 second. Vinaz, 1 second. I'll
Yes,
just
sir.
come back. One important thing.
Yes, sir. Okay. Yeah.
Viraj, continue.
Yes, sir.
Viraj, continue.
Blood pressure is 130 by 80 millimeter mercury and a pulse pressure of 50 millimeter mercury. Respiratory rate is 16 cycles
Blood
per
pressure
minute.
is 140 by?
And is of the abdominothoracic. 130 by 80
blood pressure
millimeter
is?
mercury.
Blood pressure
130 by 80. 130 by 80.
130 by 80. Okay, continue.
Respiratory rate is 16 cycles per minute. There is no talar, icterus, cyanosis, clubbing, lymphadenopathy or edema. He has a typical elongated face with frontal bossing, with deep set ears, with micrognathia, crowded teeth, high arched palate. He has long fingers and feet. The arms, his upper segment to lower segment ratio is 0.7, and his arm span is more than that of the height. Walker-Murdoch sign and Steenberg sign are positive.
How much is the arm span and how much is the height? What is significance? What is significance of you measuring the arm span and significance of measuring the height?
The arm span is greater than height in certain conditions like Klinefelter syndrome.
No, I'm saying what should be the difference? If your height is say 160 and your arm span is 161. So do you mean that it means that your arm span is much more than your height? What should be the significant difference between the two in centimeters?
Sir, I don't know that.
It should be at least 3 centimeters. The arm span should be much more than 3 centimeters compared to your height. So if your height is 150, your arm span should be at least 155. To say you have long arms. Okay, continue.
So these findings are consistent with that of the Marfan syndrome. Moving on to the cardiovascular examination.
What about the spine?
Spine shows kyphosis.
Okay.
Spine kyphosis, sir, I mentioned.
Okay. Continue.
On inspection, the chest shows pectus excavatum type of deformity. There is absence of precordial bulge. The apex beat is located in the left sixth intercostal space on the midclavicular line.
Viraj, can you tell me some chest deformities?
We can get a barrel-shaped chest. There can be pectus excavatum. There can be ricketic rosary. There can be the vitamin D associated deformities of the chest. We can get keel chest or cobbler chest or a pigeon-shaped chest.
Yeah. And any other? What is scorbutic rosary?
Scorbutic rosary is associated with vitamin C deficiency scurvy.
Yes.
There is tenderness at the costochondral angles, which is absent in case of the ricketic rosary.
Okay, there is acute angulation of the rib in scorbutic rosary.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Continue.
There is absence of any precordial bulge. The apex beat lies in the left sixth intercostal space on the midclavicular line. There are no other visible pulsations. There is no dilated vein, scar, sinuses. Trachea is central in position.
Okay. Can you elaborate on the apex beat?
The apex beat is in the left sixth intercostal space. That is, it is down and out. It is more likely suggestive of left ventricular dilatation or hypertrophy.
Okay. Continue.
On palpation, the inspectory findings were confirmed. The apex peat lies in the left sixth intercostal space on the midclavicular line, and it is hyperdynamic. There is a parasternal heave of grade 2 on the left side. There are no other palpable pulsations. Normal carotid artery pulsations are present. There is no thrill. So that's it in palpation. And there is no other there is no other thrill or any sort of palpable pulsation.
Okay. Okay, continue.
On percussion, the
Viraj,
left
Viraj,
border
1
is
second.
10 centimeter from...
Viraj,
Yes,
1
sir.
second.
Yes, sir.
When you can get double apex? Double apex beat. Which condition you can get double apex beat?
Hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy. Sir, I am not sure. I don't know.
Patient having LV aneurysm. Sometimes you can get a double apex beat. Okay. Continue.
Just a second. Yes. On percussion, the left border is 10 centimeter from the mid-sternal line in the left sixth intercostal space. The right border is substernal, and there is a dull note in the second left
Suppose the right
intercostal
border
space.
is not substernal, it is beyond the sternum. On the right side, what does it mean? So on percussion, you are getting the right border of the heart, which is on the right paracardiac region.
It can indicate right ventricular enlargement.
Yes. Okay,
it can be because of the mitral regurgitation has decompensated, which could give rise to a pulmonary edema, which could further give rise to pulmonary hypertension and the back pressure onto the right ventricle.
Okay, continue.
On auscultation over the mitral area, S1 is soft, S2 is normal, S3, S4 are absent. Following S1, there is a non-ejection click, which is followed by a murmur, which is of high-pitched, late systolic murmur of crescendo decrescendo pattern, having a reddish grating character, which is heard in the left lateral position with the diaphragm of the stethoscope of grade 3 radiating to the left parasternal region, and there is increase in intensity and duration, as well as the click and the murmur move closer to S1 on standing and on Valsalva maneuver.
Okay, so you have described the murmur properly. Now let us dissect your auscultatory findings.
Yes, sir.
So again, say your auscultatory findings.
S1 is
one
soft.
By one. Yeah,
S1 is soft.
S1 is soft. So in which condition you get a soft S1?
Soft S1 can be in case of mitral stenosis with a calcification of the valves. We can get soft S1 in mitral regurgitation because of loss of isovolumetric contraction.
Yes. Okay.
Any rheumatic heart disease involving degeneration of the mitral. Yes, sir.
Continue. Soft S1. Uske baad, after that.
Soft S1, S2 over here was normal. A2P2 was normal over here.
Okay. Then?
S3 and S4 are absent.
Okay. What does S3 means?
So, S3 would indicate a left ventricular failure, which can occur, or it can also be because of volume overload.
So your patient is not in failure. And
yes, it is.
What does S4 means?
S4 indicates an acute MR, sir.
Okay,
in this particular setting.
So now tell me the difference between an acute MR. What are the causes of acute MR? Acute
MR can be because of more commonly because of myocardial infarction, especially the inferior wall myocardial infarction. It is more commonly associated with posteromedial papillary muscle because it has a single blood supply from the descending coronary artery, whereas anterolateral muscle is very less likely to be involved because of a dual blood supply from the left side by the oblique and the diagonal arteries.
Yes.
It can be because of a that is one of the cause. The papillary muscle rupture. It can be because
Okay.
of chordae tendineae rupture.
Yeah.
It can be because of a trauma.
Trauma. Don't talk about trauma in medicine. So, any other cause of acute MR? Infective endocarditis.
Yeah, any reactivation of rheumatic lesion.
Yes. Okay. So, what is the difference between an acute MR and a chronic MR?
In acute MR, basically the presentation is very acute in onset. Especially suppose if we consider in case of myocardial infarction, the complication arises within 2 days, and the signs are not associated prominently with the volume overload, but instead in acute MR we expect pulmonary edema to be the most commonest symptom. It is because the left atrium does not get time to get accustomed to the increased volume overload. So the back pressure directly goes on into the pulmonary circulation, which gives rise
So
to the
one is
edematous
patient goes into pulmonary edema very early.
Yes.
Second,
And
what is the point that differentiates acute MR from chronic MR? S3.
Yeah, S3, yes, sir.
Okay.
And S4.
And S4. So what is
S4.
present in acute MR and what is absent in chronic MR?
In acute MR, S4 will be present. S3 won't be present. Whereas in chronic MR, S3 would be present. S4 won't be present. If S4 would be present, then it would indicate an acute MR.
Why S4 is absent in chronic MR?
In chronic MR, there will be dilatation of the left ventricle. Thus, there cannot be S4 can never happen in chronic MR.
Okay, so one is there is a dilatation and thinning of the left atrium. Apart from that, what can occur? What is the complication that can occur because of dilation of the LA?
It can go on to compress upon posteriorly. It can left recurrent laryngeal nerve, esophagus, dysphagia. It can cause paraparesis.
No. MR causing dilation of the left atrium. What is a common arrhythmia you can get? Whenever there is a LA dilation.
Atrial fibrillation.
Atrial fibrillation.
Yes, sir.
Yes. Atrial fibrillation, if there is atrial fibrillation, you won't have any S4.
Yes, sir.
So one of the commonest arrhythmia in mitral regurgitation is atrial fibrillation.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So that is there. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Moving on to the sounds and other sounds and murmur. Following S1, there is a non-ejection click.
Okay.
And after that, there is a gap.
In which condition you will get a click? What are the conditions where you get the click?
Click can be an ejection systolic click or a non-ejection clicks. Ejection systolic clicks are seen in case of atrial stenosis, pulmonary stenosis.
So what does a click mean? Click means an organic lesion.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Whenever there is a click, it means there is a valvular organic lesion. Okay. And you said non-ejection clicks?
Yes, sir.
Any examples?
Mitral valve prolapse.
Okay. Continue.
Yeah. It is high pitch. It's a late systolic murmur of crescendo decrescendo pattern, having a reddish grating sound character.
Which murmur you will have a decrescendo? Apart from your case, any other condition where the murmur will be decrescendo?
Aortic stenosis.
No, that's a ejection systolic murmur. See, we are talking about systolic murmurs, and the pansystolic murmur could be a crescendo, a decrescendo, or it could be a holosystolic murmur. So in your case, you are saying it is a decrescendo murmur. So any other example where you get a decrescendo murmur, the murmur dies down or decreases in the intensity? Acute MR.
Okay, sir.
In acute MR, the LA is not dilated, so the murmur becomes decrescendo. Okay. Are you getting it?
Okay, sir. Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Continue.
It is heard in left lateral position with the diaphragm of the stethoscope. It is of grade 3, radiating to the left parasternal region, and it increases in intensity.
Left parasternal, or you want to say left axilla?
Left parasternal region, because it is a posterior leaflet which is involved. It radiates towards the anterior side, so I expect it to be towards
to the base
left
of the heart.
parasternal
To
region.
the base of the heart.
Base of the yes.
Yes.
Had it been a rheumatic lesion, then I would have had suspected anterior and then the axilla and the infrascapular region.
Yes. So my another question is, if you are saying a mitral valve prolapse,
Yes, sir.
what would be a diagnosis? How will come to a diagnosis of that mitral valve prolapse? When you say the mitral valve has prolapsed,
Sir, I don't know. Based on
see,
the
when the prolapse of the mitral valve is about 2 mm, at least it should be 2 mm above the mitral annulus. Then only we say it is a mitral valve prolapse. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, continue.
Yes,
Continue.
and it increases in intensity and duration, and it and the click and the murmur move closer to the S1 after on standing and on Valsalva maneuver.
Okay. So, what are the other maneuvers? Just enumerate the maneuvers.
Inspiration, expiration, standing to supine, supine to standing, Valsalva maneuver, squatting, isometric hand grip exercises, lifting of the legs.
Okay. So, what do the maneuvers do? Can you just tell me or just elaborate about what the maneuvers do?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. In case
For
of
example, I'll give
inspiration
an example. What the sustained hand grip or squatting does?
It increases the peripheral vascular resistance, as a result of which I expect the mitral regurgitation murmur, the aortic regurgitation murmur, and VSD to increase in the character. There should be there should be an increase in the intensity of these murmurs because
The
of
reason
increase
is
in the
they increase the afterload.
Yes,
And by increasing the afterload, they increase the mitral regurgitation
quality of the murmur.
Yes. Okay. Continue.
So, respiratory system examination.
Viraj, and one more is Viraj, one more. What does Valsalva maneuver or standing? What does it do?
On Valsalva maneuver or standing, by various mechanism, finally, eventually there is decrease in the left ventricular volume which occurs.
Preload. It decreases your preload.
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay, they decrease your preload.
Almost all the murmurs, there is a following this, there is a decrease in intensity except for mitral valve prolapse and hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy, where there is a
Hello, your voice is not there. Viraj, your voice is not there.
Hello, am I audible? Hello,
I can hear you.
Hello.
We can hear you.
Yeah. Yes. The only exceptions are HOCM and mitral valve prolapse to that maneuver.
Okay. Continue.
Yes. And the rest of the systemic examination is essentially normal.
Yes. Okay. So, any other systems you want to examine?
I would, other than cardiovascular system, I would like to examine the spine, and I would also like to have an ophthalmological examination of the patient.
Yes. And any metabolic parameter you feel would be deranged in Marfan's?
Homocysteine.
Hello,
homocysteine level, sir.
Okay, continue. So, what is your diagnosis of the case?
uh, mitral valve prolapse with compensated mitral insufficiency without complications and a normal sinus rhythm, most likely to be attributed to Marfan syndrome.
Okay. So you're saying it is a mitral valve prolapse secondary to Marfan syndrome, and the patient
sir.
doesn't have any infective endocarditis,
Complicated.
and
Yes, it
the
is.
patient has got a sinus rhythm.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. So what investigations you would like to do?
I would like to start with the basic investigation: CBC, LFT, RFT, serum electrolyte, blood sugar levels.
No, specific
Along with
investigations
that,
you would like to
I
do?
would like to go for ECG and echocardio.
Okay.
ECG, 2D echocardiography.
Okay. ECG and echocardiography. Okay. Any other? Then coming to the treatment part.
X-ray and X-ray.
Okay, X-ray. Okay. So coming to the treatment part.
Since this patient has inherited conditions of a condition of the Marfan syndrome, however, is asymptomatic, but eventually he will develop into a chronic case. So I would like to, for this particular patient who is young with a good ejection fraction, I would and because I know he is going to develop further complications later on, I would like to consider a mitral valve replacement surgery, sir.
Okay. So when you say the patient has got a severe mitral regurgitation.
Severe mitral regurgitation, there are three parameters. There is a 60-50.4 rule. 60 millimeter mercury of
60 millimeter, 60 ml and systolic volume.
Yeah, 60 ml is the regurgitant flow. 50% of the fraction is regurgitant, and 0.4 of the area. I don't remember, sir. 0.4 centimeter square of
When we say
area.
severe MR, when the regurgitant volume is more than 60 ml, or it is more than 50%.
Of the ejection.
And second is if the mitral valve area, that is the orifice, regurgitant orifice is more than 0.4 centimeter square.
Okay, sir.
Then we say it has got a severe MR. Any other left ventricular ejection fraction of less than 60. Okay. Whenever there is a left ventricular ejection fraction of less than 60, the patient has got a severe MR.
Okay, sir.
Okay. And suppose the patient has got a very low murmur, and now after treatment the patient's murmur increases. So patient has got a mitral regurgitation. You are treating the patient with diuretics, and after that the murmur is loud. Then what does it mean?
You
understand my question? Patient has got a mitral regurgitation. You have given Lasix to the patient. You have given other treatment to the patient, and now the murmur has increased. Duration has increased.
The prosthesis is not placed properly.
Not prosthesis. We are not talking about mechanical or bioprosthesis. It means that the patient was in failure.
Okay.
So whenever the patient is in failure, left ventricular failure, because of mitral regurgitation, and after treatment, you will get a loud murmur. The loudness of the murmur or the duration of the murmur might increase after treatment. Okay. Where were we? We were at the investigations. Okay. Now treatment.
Yes.
You said mitral valve replacement. Hello.
Yes, sir.
Hello, Viraj.
Yes, sir.
Yes, you're hearing me? Yeah. So regarding the mitral valve replacement, you would like to use which valve, mechanical or bioprosthetic?
In this particular patient, I would like to use a mechanical valve.
Mechanical valve. Can you give examples of a mechanical valve?
Sir, no, I don't know the examples.
Huh? Can you
don't
tell
know
me the types of mechanical valve? You have a tilting disc. You have a ball and cage.
No, sir, I have not studied.
Ball in a cage. Then?
Sir, I don't know that.
Bileaflet
I
also.
haven't studied.
Okay. Okay. And any other name you know of the mitral valve, mechanical prosthetic valve? St. Jude's.
Shri,
St. Jude's valve is there.
Shri Chitra in India.
Chitra TT. Okay. And we have Star Edwards. Okay. These are the examples of mechanical bioprosthetic valves. What are the complications of mechanical bioprosthetic valves?
Sir, would you please repeat them?
What are the complications of mechanical bioprosthetic valves? Or what we have to monitor?
We have to monitor the PT-INR of the patient.
Okay, so you have to give anticoagulant to the patient.
Profound anticoagulation for life.
Okay, so the mechanical valve complication would be a choked valve. There would be a thrombosis of the valve. There could be a infective endocarditis, prosthetic infective. What is the treatment of infective endocarditis of prosthetic valve?
No, replace the valve.
Replacement of the valve. Okay, so which are the conditions where you would like to replace the valve?
If there is a prolapse of the valve, if I don't get to listen to the click of the valve.
Okay, if there is a fungal endocarditis, infective endocarditis of fungal type. If the patient has got a if the patient has got a prosthetic valve endocarditis, then you will have to replace the valve. Okay. So coming to bioprosthetic valve, what are the examples of bioprosthetic valve? And in which conditions you use bioprosthetic valve?
Porcine, and in case of porcine and bovine valves.
Bovine. So any examples you know?
No, sir.
One is Perimount, other is Carpenter Edwards. You have Medtronics also, Medtronics valve. So these are examples of the bioprosthetic valve. So what are the indications when you use bioprosthetic valves?
If the patient is quite very much elderly, if she is a female who is a pregnant
female.
Pregnant female, yeah.
Second, very elderly
Older
persons.
Older
very elderly persons. And thirdly, if the patient gets complication with anticoagulants or cannot is not compliant with anticoagulants, then you go in for bioprosthetic valves. Okay.
Yes.
In bioprosthetic valve, there is a pericardial flap also.
Okay,
pericardial, the valve is made up of pericardium also. Okay, bovine pericardium. Okay, sir. Or porcine pericardium also. Okay. Can you tell me names of few anticoagulants?
Anticoagulants can be newer oral there are oral anticoagulants and parenteral anticoagulants. Among the oral anticoagulants, we have warfarin on one hand, and we have the newer oral anticoagulants on other hand, like dabigatran,
thrombin
rivaroxaban, apixaban. Yes, sir. Thrombin inhibitors, sir.
And we have one is thrombin inhibitors, and we have second is
factor 10.
Anti-10 inhibitors.
10. Yes.
Anti-10 inhibitors are apixaban, rivaroxaban, and thrombin inhibitors are dabigatran.
Dabigatran.
What is the advantage of these oral anticoagulants?
We need not monitor the PT-INR in the case of the newer oral anticoagulants, and this it has been approved. The factor 10A rivaroxaban, apixaban has been approved in case of prosthesis of the hip implantations.
Okay. So now, if suppose your patient was a pregnant female, which are the cardiac conditions which are absolute contraindication for pregnancy?
Belonging to Clark 3, according to the Clark 3 classification, the conditions which belong to Clark 3 classification, involving that of around the aortic regurgitation, aortic dissection, and pulmonary hypertension, sir.
Yes, so pulmonary hypertension, aortic stenosis, mitral stenosis, aortic coarctation of the aorta. These are the absolute contraindications.
Contraindications.
Okay, and pregnant people tolerate regurgitant lesion much better. Like MR or AR, they tolerate much better compared to stenotic lesions. Okay.
Okay, sir.
So just
Sir,
tell me
so
in
what is the
brief
reason
about
for pain?
anticoagulation in pregnancy. What anticoagulation you will use in pregnancy if your patient is pregnant and having a
Sir,
rheumatic heart disease?
in the first trimester of pregnancy, I would like to avoid warfarin. I would like to anticoagulate using heparin. In the second trimester,
So
I would
till
again
12
switch back
weeks.
to
So Viraj,
yes, up
till
to
12
12
weeks you give heparin.
Okay,
From
sir.
12 to 36 weeks or 35 weeks you give warfarin.
Warfarin. And again, then
And
switch back
2
to
weeks
heparin.
before delivery, you again start with heparin.
Yes, sir.
And then after delivery, after a week of delivery, you start the patient on warfarin.
Back on
That is
warfarin.
post delivery. You after 12 hours, after 24 hours, you can start with heparin and then overlap with warfarin by day 7 postpartum.
Okay, sir.
Okay. Okay. So any other drugs you would like to give if your patient was in failure?
Left ventricular, I would like to give diuretics to reduce the volume overload. I would
Yes.
consider inotropic drugs. The inodilator, I would like to consider inodilators, minamrinon.
Milrinone, but that is if the patient has got a low blood pressure.
Low blood pressure,
Yeah,
yes, sir.
inotropic support. Okay. What if your patient didn't have MVP, but he has mitral regurgitation due to rheumatic heart disease?
Yes.
What would be your prophylaxis? Would you give any prophylaxis?
Penicillin prophylaxis.
So can you tell me some what are for how many years you are going to give?
It depends. The prophylaxis will depend upon the patient who has suffered from a rheumatic heart disease. If the patient just suffers from if the patient just has carditis, then maximum up to 25 years of age or up to 10 years from the onset. And if the patient has a properly documented case of a rheumatic heart disease, then we have to give lifelong prophylaxis.
So if the patient is non-carditis, it is only for 5 years.
5
if
years.
the patient has got carditis, it is for 10 years or 25 years.
Yes, sir.
And if the patient has carditis with valvular involvement, it is lifelong or till 41 years of age.
Yes, sir.
Okay. 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 So any other investigation or any other treatment modality you want to give to this patient? You want to wrap up this case? Any other suggestion you want to give? Or any special investigation you want to do? My one last question would be, which are the cardiac conditions where you give infective endocarditis prophylaxis? Which cardiac conditions you would like to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis?
Sir, I don't know.
Would you give eye prophylaxis for ASD? No, you would not give. You will give for VSDs, for cyanotic heart diseases, for valvular heart diseases. You will have to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis. Which procedures, pre-procedure, you would like to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis? Any procedure you do before that you want to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis?
Before performing a mitral valve replacement or a balloon mitral valvulotomy?
Any procedure for which a routine non-cardiac procedure for which you want to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis? Non-cardiac procedure. For
pulmonary catheterization.
Pardon?
Pulmonary catheterization.
No, for dental procedures you will have to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis. For genitourinary procedures you will have to give IE prophylaxis. For ogidoscopy you will have to give or a GI procedures, you will have to give infective endocarditis prophylaxis. So tell me the drugs of infective endocarditis prophylaxis. Amoxicillin you will give 6 hours before procedure and 12 hours after the procedure, along with gentamicin. Okay? Okay. So your final diagnosis regarding the case is?
Mitral valve prolapse without any complications and normal sinus rhythm.
Okay. So what are the complications of mitral valve prolapse? MVP?
Mitral
Few
valve
cases of
prolapse can,
MVP. So what are the complications of MVP?
it can lead to volume overload of the left ventricle. In the decompensated phase, there will be decrease in the ejection fraction.
No, I am just asking complications. Straightforward, simple question. Complications of mitral valve prolapse. As I said, infective endocarditis is one complication. Second, patient can present with syncopal episodes. Patient can have QTC prolongations. Okay,
Okay,
a prolonged QT and cause tachyarrhythmias.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So we'll finish off this case now.
Sir, and what additional investigation should I think of?
X-ray. Why you want to do X-ray?
X-ray would demonstrate left ventricular enlargement, and if there is any mitral enlargement, and if there is superadded MS plus MR, then even those findings would get depicted on the X-ray.
Okay. If the patient is in pulmonary edema, what findings you will get on X-ray?
Batwing appearance.
Okay. What are curly A, B, and C lines?
That there is septalization of the pulmonary veins. So there is
so B lines where you will get at the base. At the base of the lung.
From the diaphragm to
A
the
lines
lungs.
where you will get at the
C
apical
lines
area.
are hilum.
And C at the hilum. Okay.
Yes, sir.
So A lines are at the apex of the lung. So if the patient has got severe pulmonary edema, you will get A lines. Okay.
Okay, sir.
Okay. So the case was good presentation. At MBBS level, definitely it was a good presentation. The only thing you should have added some spice to the case by giving more complaints rather than just having palpitations. And it would have been better if you would have had a mitral regurgitation due to rheumatic heart valves.
Sir,
Due to
most of
rheumatic,
the cases I read were of rheumatic origins. So I did not read up anything about prolapse case. So sir, I wanted to try something different. And last time
so my last question to you would be, if you have aortic regurgitation and mitral regurgitation, which valve are you going to replace first? Ideally, you should replace both the valves. But still, if you want to replace one valve, which valve you will replace first? You will do MVR or AVR?
AVR, sir.
AVR. Always replace the distal valve first. AVR will be followed by the MVR. Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So sir, thank you, Viraj, for your case presentation. Next time we'll have regarding aortic stenosis.
Okay, sir.
Okay, on Monday I'll take the case. Okay, and Tanmay will let me know which case, who is going to present. Okay,
sir.
Now, apart from you, some other person also should be able to present the case. Okay, so I'll shut down.
Sir, I have some doubts.